Psalm 16 verse 6 is our text this evening. Psalm 16 verse 6. The lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. This 16th Psalm has a lot to say about true worship and the true service of the Lord. We saw this morning that it begins with a prayer to God to watch over and care for us because we trust alone in Him. And then our text, which confesses God's absolute self-sufficiency, that our goodness can't benefit God in any way, but we can help and assist the saints, the excellent, in whom is our delight. Verse 4 sounds an antithetical note. Over against the proper service of the Lord are those who hasten after another god, who offer drink offerings of blood to idols. We don't want anything to do with them, says the psalmist, and their sorrows and pains shall be multiplied. Not that way, verse 4, but the way of the Lord. He's the portion of mine inheritance and of my cup. He maintains my lot. God is my portion. He is my inheritance. He is my cup. And then our text. The lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. And the remainder of this psalm also sets forth many moving elements of true religion. Especially as we come to the end of Psalm 16, we have teaching here concerning the resurrection from the dead, the resurrection of an individual, especially in verse 10, which verse, along with surrounding verses, is quoted by Peter in that sermon in Acts 2 on the day of Pentecost, which is of course why we read it earlier. And we'll see in due course how this ties in with this confession of our text. I have a goodly heritage. I have a goodly heritage. First we're going to note that this is David's confession, for he is the psalmist here according to the title of the 16th Psalm. Then that this is Christ's confession. There we go a little bit deeper. And then that this is personally the confession of each and every believer. I have a goodly heritage. David's confession, Christ's confession, and the believer's confession. It is possible to know the emotional condition of David as he makes this confession of verse 6, that the lines are fallen to him in pleasant places. According to verse 3, David is delighting. He's delighting in the saints, because of course he delights in the God of the saints, who is in the saints by his Spirit and grace. He blesses the Lord in verse 7. He's confident in verse 8 that he shall not be moved, because the Lord's at his right hand. He's sure and confident. According to verse 9, he knows gladness and joy. And according to verse 11, he is filled with happy anticipation of great good in the future. Thou wilt show me the path of life. In thy presence is fullness of joy. At thy right hand there are pleasures forevermore, and I'm going to enjoy them. That's David's attitude here. And this delight and confidence is also seen in verse 6. It's implied there. The lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. And a person who says, I have a goodly heritage, is content. I have a good heritage. A person who says, I have a goodly heritage, is grateful. And if we say, to go a step further, the lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places, yea, and that's a strong affirmation, yea, I have a goodly heritage, you would say that person is not only content, not only grateful, but they are glad. This is the emotional context of Psalm 16. Now the vocabulary of our text is that of inheritance. We all know a little bit about inheritance. I want to show that to you. Verse 6 begins, the lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places, and of itself that mightn't seem too clear to us. Lines here refer to chords, more especially measuring chords. Yea, further, the measuring cord which marks out the land that a person inherits. The lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. And the word heritage is closely related to our word inheritance, because the word herit is in both. Inherit, inheritance. So there's two words in verse 6 telling us that this text deals with our inheritance. The inheritance theme is prominent also in the preceding verse. The Lord, verse 5 begins, is the portion of mine inheritance. That's the first reference. And of my cup. Thou maintainest my lot. And one's lot is the inheritance which is allotted to you. Lot, allotted, allotment. So, two words in our text and two words in the preceding verse are used of inheritance, and all of these four words are used in the Bible of Israel's inheriting the land of Canaan, of each of the 12 tribes inheriting their particular tribal allotment, and of each family receiving its own specific piece of land. These four words are used in the second half of Joshua, when Israel, after having driven out the Canaanites, then takes their land by gift from God, receiving it as an inheritance. These four words are used in the second half of Joshua and in related passages. No wonder David is joyful. He is talking about his inheritance or heritage. He says, I have a heritage, and it's not a small one. My heritage is not poor, swampy, marshy land or land way up a hill that you couldn't grow anything on. My heritage does not consist of a lot of worthless things left me by a relative who didn't like me and wanted to insult me. I have a goodly heritage, and the lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places. And so David speaks of his heritage with contentment. I'm happy with this heritage. Gratitude, I'm thankful that I have been given this heritage, and I am glad. The lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places. Yea, I have a goodly heritage. This, of course, raises the question, well, what was David's inheritance? The first thing we may think of is his family situation. His father Jesse had a farm in Bethlehem, Judah. According to 1 Samuel 16, David was one of 8 sons, the youngest son. And according to Hebrew law, the oldest son got a double portion. So David's inheritance should have been a 9th of Father Jesse's farm. But this verse, the lines are fallen unto me in pleasant places, yea, I have a goodly heritage, is thinking of a whole lot more than a 9th of Jesse's farm in Bethlehem.